For me, it just feels like that home with myself is the gift. That's the headline.
Welcome, everybody. This is From Fact to Free, turning hard times into a gift. And today I'm talking to Chelsea DeWaters. And I can say I met Chelsea before she met me. Like, it was in our Wayfinder training. There was a call with 150 people, something like that, with Martha Beck. And Chelsea was one of the volunteers. There were 15 volunteers for a little coaching demonstration of Martha. And Chelsea volunteered, and I saw her on screen. And somehow I felt drawn to this woman. There was so much compassion. There was so much kindness on the screen. It radiated. So I wrote down that name. It was the only one I wrote down that day. And a few months later, I wrote her an email because I thought now it's time to practice a little bit with her. And she said yes. And this way we talked to each other for hours. And I'm so happy that I decided to reach out to her. And today she's here. And today we talk about finding your way back to peace, to a peaceful inner home. And just a few minutes ago, when we tried to start that podcast and I had some technology problems, I felt I have left that peace inside of me. And I noticed. So we meditated a little bit together and I found my peace again. And I think that's the perfect introduction to what we want to talk about today. And Chelsea eloquently wrote that on her website. There's a beautiful first sentence on her website. And maybe Chelsea can share that sentence and talk a little bit about it.
I believe that we each have a peaceful home within ourselves, and we just have to find our way back to it. And I really did not always know that. Um, I've learned it through hard knocks, right? And through my own process of wandering and meandering and healing. And now it just feels like such a sacred opportunity to be able to just sit with people who are finding their own way back to their own peaceful home within themselves and just trusting that place that's within them. And you're, so amazing at this, Marcus, as a coach. I learned so much from you on this as well that I keep finding over and over that each of us really does have that quiet, sacred, peaceful place, but we lose it.
And before we go back to the beginning of your story, your childhood, and then later to your marriage and the turning point in your story, I'm curious about a little story you told me a few days ago about your cats and what they are teaching you.
Mhm. There's a lot of change happening in my life right now. There's big, big changes happening in my life. And I am in the midst of feeling uh, a bit fucked once again, right? There's been a lot of freedom, and then I can come back around to that kind of fucked feeling and find myself just in the web of things. Right in the midst of that, I decided that I would get a second cat to keep my cat company because I began to fear that he would become lonely and depressed if he didn't have a cat friend. And so I got another cat from a friend, and I began the process of introducing these two cats. I felt that such a powerful need to control the situation. And it was a situation that is out of my control, right? I can follow the steps and I can do the process, but ultimately the thing that's happening is I'm not in control of how these 2 animals feel about each other at the end of the day, or what they do in the midst of their interactions with each other, but I felt, such a profound need to do every step of the process perfectly, to fully understand what was happening at every given moment and respond perfectly and effectively, and to, manage the outcome in such a way that at the end of it, there would be no way that I could look back and say that I had done anything wrong. And that is how I used to live my entire life. I used to live my entire life continuously in that state of pressure and anxiety. And I did not know that. I didn't understand that that's what was happening. Um, but now that I have learned how it feels to be at peace internally, now that I've learned how it feels to come home to myself and to be able to hear myself and to be able to release outcomes, to be able to let go of what happens and be in the moment with myself in a state of love, um, I'm able to notice when I get back into that place and I'm able to bring myself home again. Sometimes it takes me a little while. But I also really feel like one of the most important things that I've learned thus far is that we, uh, for me, I'll just speak for myself. I find that like I can come back to the same places over and over. And I can come back to places that I think I've healed or dealt with. And I can find myself in that sometimes a moment of panic that's like, oh, I thought I had worked through this. I thought I didn't do this anymore. I thought these things didn't come up anymore. But each time I come back into some of those places that feel like the same old places, there's another opportunity for me to learn something. There's another opportunity for me to heal the next layer of that part of myself. There's another insight that's waiting for me there if I'm open to it, right? Um, I have learned that for me, that is just how it works. There is this kind of circular, cyclical process of growing and changing and healing rather than just one continuous straight line. And um, finding the gratitude and the grace for myself in those times when I feel like I'm back in that same old pattern.
Do you have a concrete moment with your two cats, like when
Mm,
you were in that control mode and then realized, oh, that's what I'm doing again, and then changed it? Do you remember concrete situations?
I found that one of the first times they interacted and they were very wary of each other, and there was a little bit of physical aggression towards each other. Like, I was in my head in that moment trying to calculate everything that was happening and is this okay and is this going well and what do I need to do and what do I do if they really start fighting and how should I take every little sound that my cat is making. And then I kind of stopped myself and noticed that actually everything from the neck down is just full of anxiety. Right? Like I am aware of all of these thoughts and strategies in my mind, but my whole body is tensing and constricting. And there's like a electric, awful buzzing kind of feeling in my chest, right? Just full of anxiety. And cats are highly empathetic. So I'm actually putting this out into the room with these two animals that are also in a stressful situation. And I just took a breath and kind of connected in my heart and my mind to how much I love my little cat and how scary this must be for this new cat who doesn't know us. And I just connected with that love, right? That state of love, and just kind of stopped, right? Stop trying to do anything, stop trying to figure anything out. In that moment, I just turned my attention to connecting with that state of compassion and care and love, and was able to acknowledge right then, I don't know what to do. I've never done this before. I don't know what every little cat sound means in this situation. So I get to just kind of move through this and learn as I go at the same time. And this immediate need to figure out what to do next just kind of softens and then dissolves. I think again, that's a good example of what I find myself having to do a lot when I come across situations that kind of kick up, um, that need to manage and to be the person who knows exactly what to do and what's needed and solves all the problems.
So, in short, you tell me where I'm wrong. You found a way for yourself to notice I'm in fear and then somehow switch the flip into a state of love and compassion.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Yes. And I think sometimes that's all there is to do. Then I may know what to do. I may still not know what to do. I may then have to figure out what to do, but I'm figuring out what to do and how to proceed from that place of home, from that authentic place of um, peace, rather than from for me my old very familiar structures of panic and anxiety and fear and shame. I think there's a lot of shame under that need to control everything and manage everything and, under perfectionism and under the need to kind of be the one who knows what to do and how to handle everything. Um, I used to think that being a person who people could look up to, who people could rely on for always knowing what to do and always doing the right thing and taking the lead, was a reflection of like high self esteem. And it's really been a process, a healing process to learn that that is the opposite of the truth, that there's actually so much um, shame. There's actually such uh, a low self-esteem in the sense of my value depending on me being a certain way and being able to do certain things.
Mhm,
There's
mhm,
such a fear of being found out underneath that. There's such a fear of the parts that don't know what to do or of the parts that are afraid because they're not useful to managing the situation perfectly and being the one who figures everything out. Um, and that's heavy, that's a heavy shame is a heavy thing to carry.
Now I'm curious about little Chelsea, where all this started. What do you want to let us know about little Chelsea's life?
So I was I had a wonderful childhood in so many ways and a really uh beautiful, loving home. I was also the firstborn of five kids, and I grew up in my role as um you know, one of these kids that's just like an achiever type, wants to do everything correctly, wants to be good, wants to be the leader, wants to be a good leader to the little troop of children that I was
Yeah.
growing up with. Um, and I really, over the course of my growing up and early adult years, I developed some patterns around caretaking other
Mhm,
people based on the belief that they really needed me to, that other people really can't. take care of themselves. And so I need to help them. And I developed over time a real sense that my value as a person, again, that my value in my family, in my community, with my friends, was in being the one who was mature and wise, who always did the right thing, who always understood the situation and knew what the situation called for. So this um in this way, I would say a lot of the strengths that I have as a person and a lot of the skills that I got to develop as a child had kind of a dark side. Um, and, you know, those strengths are still beautiful things. They're still strengths. But for me, as I kind of entered into young adulthood, I was coming in with, again, that really kind of pernicious sense underneath the surface that if I do not always know what to do, understand what the situation calls for, and just carry people gently into it, just get all of us where we need to go in that wise, mature, stable, all seeing way, I will not have value as a person. And I did not know that that belief was living in my system.
Yeah.
Um, But it was sort of underneath running the show. And
So what I hear, what little Chelsea heard or interpreted was they cannot take care of themselves. I need to take care of them, and my value depends on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
How did that feel like in your body and emotionally?
Mm, I would describe it as, um, continuous tension
Mhm.
because when you've taken on that degree of responsibility for other people and for being perfect,
Mhm.
you Uh, what I would say now is like when I do that, I am attempting to control things that are outside of my control.
Mhm.
I cannot control other people. I can't be perfect. Right? So I'm I'm aiming for something that's out of reach. And so there's a continuous kind of vigilance and a continuous um scheming and trying to think ahead, trying to get out in front of the situation, trying to anticipate what everybody's going to do, what everybody's going to need. There's there's you kind of have to, if you've taken that on, however consciously or subconsciously as your goal, you have to be vigilant at all times and sort of uh, working strategically at all times. Right. For me. I sort of made myself accountable to never miss anything, never, make a mistake or not see how something fits, and so there was even when I thought I was at rest, there was no rest in that state. I didn't really know, I think, what rest felt like. I didn't know what stillness felt like because internally, I never had that, um, because there were so many calculations that I had to keep track of all at once, you know?
What was little Chelsea longing for?
Mm. It's really amazing because now when I talk to all the younger versions of myself and kind of observe the younger versions of myself, and I, like, go back and feel back into those times, there's such a whimsy. There there's such a creative, whimsical, silly, just kind of belief in the magic of everything, um, that I think, I had a lot of room for as a child and was expressed in a lot of ways during my childhood, um, but there's such a freedom that I feel like I'm able to go back and give those younger parts of myself now by removing that burden of, like, being good and doing the right thing and being, someone that other people could take seriously, right?
So,
There's a freedom that I can kind of retroactively give those parts of myself, that even, as I came into young adulthood, I did a lot of things in the interest of being taken seriously,
mhm.
um, and a lot of things in the interest of I put on a lot of airs so that people could, trust me and rely on me to help them and to guide them. Again, even as a young adult in ways that were way above my pay grade, that were just totally beyond what I could do, but I often felt that I had to cover up some of that, um, silliness and whimsy and kind of magical thinking in order to be able to help people. Mhm.
So tell me if I'm wrong. What little Chelsea was longing for was to remove that burden
Mm.
and to be free to do all those magical things and have fun in life and be free and be
Mm.
your authentic self.
I think there's a whimsy that I'm able to bring into my life now that kind of speaks to those younger parts of myself. Um, in the last few years, there are a lot of things that I've done, just because they they delighted me or uh, felt fun to me. And even ways that I started to dress. I started to get, like long, sparkly nails and to wear more colorful clothing and to just buy more pink things. I love pink. And I just deprived myself of pink for a long time, in my attempts to be serious and grown up and mature. So even, something like uh, seeing some wine glasses that have flamingos for the stems at the store and going, I already have, 48 glasses at home, but I need those, those are coming home with me. Those are going to sit in my living room and I'm going to look at them every day and just feel joy. Those are the kinds of things that however small they are, have been this part of this process of, again, just letting go of that need to, um, be perceived as, serious and as, stable and steady, There's so much projection onto other people and constantly worrying about that, right? There's so much projection of, like, what will make other people feel safe and secure with me? Um, and what I'm learning now is that the things that I do just because they're delightful to me, um, actually help those things actually go into creating that peaceful home for myself, with myself, which, as it happens, when I live in that place, people tend to feel the safety of that, right? and to feel that the stability and the security of that. Um,
I totally agree. That was the privilege I got. I could feel exactly that safe space that you create in our coaching sessions. I just felt it by looking at you on the screen. I already felt it. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So if we fast forward a little bit, you talked about that you had this pattern. I have to take care of them. I have to be taken seriously. I have to be mature.
Mhm.
I have to control things. If you fast forward to your marriage, how did it express there? And yeah, what, yeah, how did
Mhm.
it express to your
Yeah,
marriage?
so I brought all of those caretaking qualities, perfectionism, that sense that my value came from being admired and being able to fix other people's problems into my marriage. At the same time, there were elements of that relationship that traumatized me over time. And I did not realize that was happening. I could recognize that there were things going on that might be considered traumatic, but I didn't believe that any damage was being done to my system because it was so important to me to be the person who can handle anything, right? Like the person that everybody can rely on to navigate any situation with wisdom and maturity and perfection. And to be that one who, like, isn't rattled by anything, you know? Not that I was always successfully portraying that by any means, but all my energy was going into trying to play that role and trying to act like I thought that person would act. So and this was true, across the board in every area of my life, um, in that stage of my adulthood. I responded to every situation by asking myself, "What would a good person think about this?" Not consciously, really, but I can see now that that was the process that would happen. I would sort of go, "What would a good person think about this? I think a good person would be thinking XYZ." And so I would say that that's what I was thinking. Um, or even, um, in this situation, I think a good person would feel XYZ emotions. And so that must be what I'm feeling. And that's what I would, um, tell other people. And I believed myself. I would, decide what I was thinking or feeling basically based on what I thought it was okay to be thinking or feeling. And um, I convinced myself of that. And so,
If I
yeah.
had asked you in that moment, like when you were in this state, how are you? What would you have answered?
Oh, yeah, probably most days some variation of like good, maybe stressed about work. There's a lot going on, there's a lot to do. I also, over the course of the first, decade or so of my adult life, became a busier and busier person. I took on more and more and more until the point that my schedule was so full. The year before the COVID shutdowns happened, my schedule was so full that there was literally, it was fully booked months and months out. And it stayed that way for a year where, someone would ask me, could we go to dinner? Can we hang out? And I would have to go, okay, I have 1 hour, 3.5 weeks from now, and that's it. And at the time, I thought that was just because there was a lot that I wanted to do and I had a high capacity to be busy. And I thought, well, I'm capable of sustaining busyness, and there's a lot I want to do. So why would I say no? And I remember even when the lockdown happened during COVID in 2020, and there was suddenly this massive, totally involuntary shift in my life and schedule, and the calendar was suddenly just cleared. Um, that I realized like how much I enjoyed some peace and quiet too, and had no idea, had been absolutely driving myself along for years leading up to that in terms of the pace, and just thought, "Oh yeah, this is normal, this is fine, I'm not worried, I just like to fill up my time." And I remember being so shocked even then back in 2020 to realize, "Oh, maybe it's not because that's the only way I like to live." But I wasn't really connected to my real feelings. I wasn't connected to my real preferences. I didn't have really any way of, um, like, checking in with myself to truly ask myself, "What do you want?" If somebody invites you to something, do you wanna go or not? Even those kind of questions, I just really didn't have any kind of internal connection to the command center to run anything by myself. I made every decision based on what I thought a good person would do, basically.
So could I say you talked about where the energy went? So your focus was outside, the energy went
Mhm.
outside.
Yes.
How did that feel like inside?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I think about it now. You know, when so when the marriage ended when I was 32 years old, um, it kind of imploded the structure of my life as I knew it. Affected a lot of things about the structure of my life. And I, at that time, really had no idea how far I had gone down that road of losing connection with myself. Um, and at that moment, I was forced to just kind of sit down in the rubble and take stock of my situation. And I started slowly to realize that sense of internal disconnection. Like, I started to realize how noisy it was in my head, how circular my thinking would usually be, how exhausted I felt by constantly trying to think through and work through scenarios, by constantly trying to anticipate uh, everything that was going to happen and what all of the possible outcomes of any given situation or conversation might be. Um, and I started to slowly realize how little trust I felt in myself. Um, and then I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't trust myself, then what does that mean? Then is it, can I even love myself if I don't trust myself? Am I able to listen to myself? Am I able to be honest? Right. I started at the first though to realize again how like noisy and stressful and sort of unending my internal landscape was. Now I describe it as the that's happening when all my energy is kind of going outside myself. when everything that I'm thinking about and that I'm focused on, all my attention is focused on the past, the future, other people, things that are happening outside of me. And I had a friend who was trained as a therapist who I had a conversation with at that time, who directed me towards the idea of codependency, which was not a word that I thought was related to me in any type of way. I think I thought of codependency as, um, just, like, being very needy and always needing to have someone with you and never being able to do anything alone. And I remember the day that my friend, uh, suggested that I might look into the concept, getting online and doing some Googling and realizing that codependency is also a term that can be used for, being that person who feels responsible for taking care of everybody else because, you don't see other people as capable, and of needing to be the one who does that. And I did some more Googling and I found a 12-step meeting that day and, entered a 12-step program. At the same time, I found, actually through that same friend, I was connected with a therapist who does internal family systems work. And I was just I had realized, okay, I think I don't actually trust myself at all. I think I stay stuck in these, like, circles of chasing my own tail, trying to figure everything out and do everything right, but I maybe can't actually I don't feel like I'm connected to anything inside, but I have no idea what to do about it. And these 2 modalities together of 12-step work and IFS gave me a pathway out of that and into actually being able to hear myself and actually being able to love myself, like to offer myself real love. And I had to learn really step by step and day by day what it felt like. Like I had to learn experientially what it actually feels like to hear yourself and what it actually feels like to offer yourself love and compassion and to experience that. It's very much like a sensory learning process rather than a cognitive, in my head, do this, do this, do this learning process. And those two things together they just blended beautifully for me because they both frameworks for me are about ceasing trying to control the situation and like quieting down and accepting what is for me. I remember like the a month or two into this kind of rubble implosion turning point, I was reading a book about codependency, and one of the taglines at the beginning of the chapter was, "I'd like to make a motion that we face reality," from the Bob Newhart show. And I just thought, "Oh my gosh, that's what I have to do." Like, that's all we can do is just face reality and continue to try to just face the reality of the situation, which requires coming into the present moment and having some just acceptance of how things are rather than how I think they should be, or how I am rather than how I think I should be. Um, and so like step by step, piece by piece, in both of those frameworks, I was given opportunities to just come into the reality of what is right now and offer that some acceptance and then start to listen to myself, start to understand what it is that I actually need, um, and then extend like love and compassion to those needs.
Do you have a little everyday example for us, like some situation that comes up again and again that you now handle differently than you used to handle it? that
Mm,
illustrates the difference.
mm. One of the things that feels um, kind of ingrained now, but very different from how I used to do things, is the time that I give myself to do nothing when I don't know what to do. For a very long time in my life, again, being that person who is responsible to always know exactly what to do and handle everything beautifully, there was really like no room, i- in my mind, subconsciously, to not know what to do, to pause and go, hmm, I wonder, I wonder what I'm going to do about that. There is always such a sense of urgency to respond right away to things, and to, again, sort of take the helm, take the lead, know exactly what I needed to say, know what was there for me. And so over the years now, I've built this permission, A, to make mistakes, just to make mistakes, but B, to just not know things, to not know what to do. Um, but also to just give myself time to go inwards and check in before I act. And so there are all the time now, something happens, it feels like it needs a response, and the response isn't right there. It's not clear to me what to do. I'm often in a state of maybe fear or insecurity or anger, maybe, um, resentment, confusion. And I just get to go, "Ah, yeah, I don't really know what to do right now. So I'm going to do nothing until I feel clarity. I will do nothing." And that permission um, to do nothing gives me like that's how I give myself the space to really ask myself, what is here for me around this? What is coming up? What's happening? What do I need? What do I want? And I have time to really ask those questions and to really discover the answers, even if the answers don't pop up immediately, because I've given myself that permission to just be a little lost. Um, I think it's the permission to not act, but it is really also the permission to feel a bit lost for a little while. And I think that's one of the ways that, when I do find myself in these places where I'm circling back through, some difficulty, some suffering, finding myself maybe in some old patterns of some old ways of acting and responding. I get to give myself permission to just feel a bit lost, to go, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what's going to come out of this. I don't know where I'm going to end up going with this. Um, and I don't have to know until I know. And that gives me that space to then come back home and be with myself. Um, but it also gives me like the permission to trust that something good is coming out of this period of struggle, or this period where I'm lacking in clarity or I feel discomfort. I'm allowed to just sit with the discomfort and trust that it's leading somewhere if I'm able to stay, um to stay coming back to myself and to stay coming back to that place of love within myself. Then whatever this, fresh version of this discomfort or uncertainty is going to take me somewhere um, that I need.
I'd like to dive into this even a little bit deeper. You said you allow yourself to do nothing. So you're in a state, there's an unpleasant feeling. if it's fear, if it's something else, older response would be to try to act right away and to control things that are out there.
Mhm.
And now you allow yourself to not act and do nothing. Go inward. What exactly does it mean internally? What are you doing when you're not doing anything?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, to be clear, sometimes I am just freaking out when I'm not doing anything, and there's gotta be room for that too, right? Like, sometimes it is just, okay, what's happening right now is that I'm freaking out, I'm scared, or I can hear those parts of myself that are like, "You have to do something. You're supposed to know what to do," that and I just I think for me, the best thing I can do is, again, just allow those things to be there. Just allow those feelings that are coming up, or the freak out that's coming up, or the part of myself that's sort of sending me a message, right? Even if it's something that feels really critical, hard to just go, okay, that's what's coming up right now.
Mhm.
That's what's in the room right now. And can I just bring in a little courage to just be with what it is and acknowledge it and maybe not try to change it right away. And
You
that's hard.
face
It's
your
hard.
yeah. You face your inner reality. You talked
Yeah.
earlier about facing reality.
Yeah.
So first step is facing inner reality and accepting it for now as it is. Okay.
Yes.
Next
Yes.
step.
Yes. And then for me, um, that the goal is just to, again, kind of come back to that home. Even if I have no idea what to do, right? I want to just come into that feeling of like internal connectedness and like tetheredness to myself. And for me, usually that looks like we were saying earlier, trying to just kind of bring my energy back into my own body is how I
Mhm.
visualize it.
Yes.
Because when I am kind of spinning out and trying to manage everything and trying to do everything perfectly, like I said before, it feels to me very much like my energy is all outside my body. So I will meditate, um, where I just try to imagine my energy coming back into my actual body. So I will focus my attention on my physical form.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can kind of focus my attention, just bring my attention to my whole body, kind of like the shape of my
Mhm.
my whole frame. Sometimes if I'm really struggling, it's as simple as like I will just focus on my hands or on the breath, like the sensation, the physical sensation of breath going in and going out. And I'll notice my mind trying to run away. And I describe it kind of like a puppy or something, just bouncing around from one thing to the next. I'll focus on my hands, and then I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch tomorrow. And then I'll focus on my hands, and then I'm thinking about the situation that has me all shook up and scared. And then I'll focus on my hands, and then I'm thinking about the show I watched on TV last night. And I just sort of watch the mind jumping around, and I just keep gently sort of bringing my attention back to any sensation that I can notice in the palms of my hands, right? Anywhere. Um, and as I do that, slowly, often slowly, right, I have that feeling of my energy being gathered back up into myself. And I bring myself back into the present moment out of worrying about the past and the future. And in that place, when I'm in the present moment, in my own body, in the reality of Chelsea at this moment, I am usually there able to connect with love for myself. And um and I think in some ways that can happen kind of naturally because in that moment of just focusing on my hands, I am allowing myself to be as I am, right? In that moment of bringing my attention back to just the physical person that exists here, I'm ceasing the effort of trying to figure everything out and fix everything. And that just like somehow, magically just innately does create this compassion and this like care. I'm providing care for myself when I do that. And so it just kind of naturally connects me back to love. And sometimes that's all. Like, there are days when like that's as far as I can get. It's just bringing in some quiet, bringing in some presence. But I think that's also the place from which um, I'm able to really like then open my heart to the universe and other people and to um, all of the sweetness and joy in the world that I want to tap into and be part of.
Now I have to repeat a sentence you told me a few weeks ago. Dropping the effort. That stick to me. It's about dropping the effort. And that I have this picture inside of me whenever, I'm trying to in meditation, I try to accomplish something and then I feel it in my hands, in my body. Then I remember Chelsea's words of wisdom, drop the effort. And I let it drop like a ball. I let it drop. And then the magic happens. So my next question is does it how does this inner state feel like when you're at home? How does it feel like for you?
Mm, mm. For me, it usually feels very quiet. Um, Even when there's a really powerful sense of like love and appreciation for myself, right? And those really kind of like sweet moments where there's just a big rush of joy and um, maybe even like admiration for myself, right? Just total acceptance and love and kindness. There's always still that quality of like kind of calm and quiet. And that has just been such a gift. That has been such a gift to experience because for so long I really didn't know that place. I didn't know that place within myself that feels at peace, and that feels just this quiet, steady, calm presence. Um it's very um sort of tender as well. It's gentle. Uh, yeah, yeah.
If somebody out there, and probably there are a lot of people out there who walk around like you used to walk around, who say everything is okay, you know, same with me. And it was true. I was happy before that illness happened. But today, that's much deeper, that happiness. And I didn't know that something like this exists back then. So my question to you is, how how does being at home being in your inner home differ from not being in your inner home?
One of the tells that I've started to lose connection with myself is, um, that profound, dishonesty starts to creep back in. And it's not an intentional dishonesty by any means, but it is profound, right? That I described earlier of I'm speaking and acting and behaving in order to convey what I think needs to be conveyed, rather than I'm connected to myself and what's actually happening, and I'm allowing other people to see that. And that particular type of dishonesty that comes from disconnection, right? Like, I think of it almost like you've, like, lost your map, you know? So it's you're going the wrong way, you're doing things that aren't they don't match what's on the map. Um, but because you're not acting from any clear set of guidance. For me, that's how it felt. And when I start to be kind of wandering around aimlessly in that way, and in the dishonesty of that, it becomes a lot more stressful. I develop a lot more pressure in the moment to, um, you know, just to do well, to respond, um, to things effectively. I start thinking about things a lot more in terms of, um, the outcome and in terms of being effective and, being perceived well, you know? And in many ways, I think those are just human traits, we're interconnected and we need each other, and so, of course, we're impacted by and aware of other people's responses to us. Um, but there is such a relaxation in being allowed to be quite honest. There's such a relaxation in being, um, knowing that you don't really have to figure out what to do all the time. You can just kind of go with what's happening, even if that's going with what's happening inside yourself. Um, so I think that's one of the, again, kind of like barometers that I am often paying attention to for um, that relaxation versus the kind of tension of trying to calculate. But I think too, I've spent a lot of years in social work, working in the foster care system in the United States, and in the field of social work, people talk a lot about self care and how important self care is to not become burned out and to make sure that you continue to have the energy to work in situations where there's a lot of trauma and grief and things can be very stressful. And so for a very long time I thought, like, oh yeah, I'm always thinking about self-care and I'm always thinking about being good to myself and making sure that I'm doing okay. And social workers always talk about, like, when you fly on an airplane, you're supposed to put your own oxygen mask on first. We use all this phraseology. Now I know how it feels to feel love and appreciation for myself. And I think I confused for a long time taking care of yourself, or sort of doing nice things for yourself, giving yourself a break, not being too hard on yourself, which are all great things. But I think I confused that for self love. And self-love to me now, it can lead to those other things, but in and of itself, it is that ability to be present internally with what is actually there, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and to extend that compassion and that curiosity for me to myself, um, and that presence, right? Like, I think of like a mother, being a kind of a good mother to myself, where whatever's happening, whatever's going on for me internally, there's a curiosity and there's a care and a presence that I'm able to bring to myself because that love is there. And the love is not based on an expectation that I'm any type of way, or that I do a good job in any type of way. It's just this deep well of like compassion and yeah, and love. So I think I was doing the best I could to be good to myself, be kind to myself as I understood it at the time. But now having had the experience of really feeling that internal acceptance, feeling the absence of judgment as I'm sitting with myself internally, it's so different. It's such a powerful, um, beautiful experience that then gives me a freedom to extend love and compassion and acceptance to other people in a different way as well. It really does. It really, like, when I feel really rooted and grounded in that caring, accepting presence with myself, um, the there's just this like openness and softness to participate in all the connection and kindness and sweetness in the world, and in everyone around me that's really kind of blocked if I'm really worried about um, doing everything correctly and trying to
Maybe
manage.
that reminds me of something you told me a few days ago. We talked about, there's this part that wants to control things, probably because it wants to have power, feel powerful. So maybe you can tell us about what happens when you let go of having to control things. What's the result of that? What happens?
Yeah, I think we were talking about kind of the concept of powerlessness in 12-step work,
Yeah.
which is for me such a beautiful idea. It's for me the idea of powerlessness, and acknowledging one's powerlessness, um, can be a really freeing moment, right? Of again, dropping the effort, of ceasing the attempts to control, of releasing the need to be the person who's got it. For me, when I kind of acknowledge my powerlessness in that way, I free myself of that
And what
responsibility and
happens?
that burden.
And what happens then when you're free?
So then there's that space for me to be with what is, right? To face the reality, to extend that acceptance internally, to be present with the truth of what I'm feeling, what I need, what I want, what all my little parts of myself are doing. And when I come into that state of presence and acceptance, um, there is a empowerment that comes with that. So there's not only this different kind of access to or connection to the larger, just what we call it, the like glittering web that is everyone and everything in the universe and all of the love that exists there. But there is also for me a sense of um a greater sense of confidence, this kind of empowerment to take my place at the table, do my little part of the story, right? Bring what I have to offer to that glittering interconnected web of things that we're all participating in. So rather than having to be the leader, having to be the one, having to shoulder the burden of making sure everything goes right on my own, which leads to a sense of powerlessness because I'm just in that circular, right, hypervigilant unmanageability. If I'm able to do that letting go process and acknowledge my powerlessness, right, and kind of go through those steps and come back into that place, then I become empowered to, again, just do my part, just play my role in the grander story and to participate in that from a place of love and from a place of curiosity and openness. And, and then, kind of what I found is that magical stuff starts happening, like, stuff that I need just shows up. People who have, messages for me or some way of helping me just show up. I mean, you're definitely one of those stories, right? That, like, when I just am taking my place in that glittering web from that place of love and openness, I I I continue to find over and over again that the things that are supposed to come connect with me do, without me having to manage all of it and make all of it happen and force it in any way. The provision is just there.
In my words, it's a different perspective. I talk about humble confidence quite often. That's something I came up with. And humility, acknowledging I cannot control everything. There's things bigger than myself. It's, yeah, I cannot control everything. But to have the confidence, I'm connected to everything. So I influence everything. And that's my
Mhm.
power. That's where my empowerment comes from. Because I am connected to everything, I influence everything, but I'm
Yeah.
not able to control it.
Uh-huh.
And that's a big difference. So I call it humble confidence. And that's what you just described, kind of.
Yes, yes, exactly. I love that. That sense of interconnectedness with everything does mean I influence
Yeah.
and I'm influenced by. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the same thing as control. That's
And
beautiful.
it's starting with surrendering my ego, which thinks, I can do it on my own, things like that. Let the ego go, surrender that, and suddenly I'm connected to more. And then
Mhm.
magical things sometimes happen, but I
Mhm.
cannot force it. I cannot say that's how it has to be.
Mhm.
But often beautiful things happen.
Yes. Yes.
So, talking about beautiful things, everybody who listened to you today probably noticed you did a lot of inner work. You came a long way. And the name of the podcast is From Factor Free, Turning Hard Times into a Gift. What's what's the gift on the other side? What's the gift you found?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it just feels like that home with myself is the gift, uh, that's the headline, as we've said before. And I think once you've experienced I'm saying you, but I'm speaking for myself, though I do hear these stories from other people too, that, like, once one has experienced that sense of being at home with oneself, you kind of can't go back from that. I can lose that connection, I can get a little fucked again. Find myself wandering around without a map, just going in the wrong direction, acting like I know where I'm going. But but you know that you've lost it. You know that this isn't how it has to feel. And so I um having having built that home with myself, I also get the gift of anytime there's suffering, anytime there's confusion or uncertainty or struggle, I know that I have that place. I know that I'll protect that place. And I know that if I get lost, I can come back to it. And that is that's the gift.
Now let's take a look into the future. You know, you worked in foster care for many years. Now you quit your job and you're starting a new career as a coach. What are you looking forward the most?
Well, as you pointed out to me, I think it's kind of a another side of the same coin, right? That for all the years of my adulthood so far, I have been in a certain type of business of trying to help people find their way home. This is a different and new kind of iteration of that same goal, but it's to help people find that home within themselves and to feel at peace, regardless of their external circumstances, right? And to be able to navigate from that place of peace, whatever the external circumstances are. For me, watching other people, um, kind of mine the treasures, the gems that are inside themselves and come into that place of love and appreciation for themselves is so beautiful. And it's healing for me. It continues my own healing process, right? To just witness the beauty and the courage and the wisdom, the knowing that other people are carrying, that we're all carrying around within ourselves. Um, to me, my role as a coach is to just sit with people as they do that and offer maybe some tools, maybe some trailheads, some guideposts that they can use to help them find their way. But it's really about um, offering that support and offering that space, and then getting to watch people again through the extension of that compassion and that curiosity and that care inward. Um, Move into that place of love, move into that place of empowerment, move into that place of connectedness so that they can go where they wanna go and they can create what they wanna create, but it comes from connecting with the self in such a loving way. That to me is it's just wonderful to bear witness to, and to remember and to be reminded myself over and over again that that's that's the way, that that's what we have access to.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you for all your wisdom. And
Mm.
thank you for showing us that you cannot be soft and strong at the same time. Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you. Thank you for creating this space to tell these stories. We need it.